I'm back for our mid World Cup check-in on what new campaigns brands are making around the tournament. Are they any better or worse than the ones that we went through right as the tournament started? Have any of the campaigns, especially the ones that I knocked, done anything new to maybe work themselves up the tiers or down the tiers? This one is going to be much shorter than my last stream because there's a few updates, a couple new interesting things, but nothing too, but not nearly as many. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to go through new work first, and then I'll see how I'll point to a couple of campaigns that have done new things, as well as let you know about certain judgments I made before that I've kind of changed my mind about. Um, as I was turning this into an article, there was a couple campaigns that I maybe judged too highly and I'm knocking down, or that I maybe looking back was a little too harsh with. So let's get into it. All right. To start, new ad that I've been seeing around Airbnb when cultures meet. They do a Spanish and an English version of it. I was originally going to put this in tier C as under the category of very ambitious, but couldn't quite land it because the thought is really nice. It just shows it's like the ad is pretty tasteful. It's still images of old school photographs of times or things that happened when cultures met, like salsa music being the result of Puerto Ricans bringing Cuban beats to New York, or jujitsu being the result of Japanese people moving to Brazil. And then it talks about how what's so nice about the World Cup. It's when cultures meet, and it's a good fit for Airbnb, as you know, being a brand that facilitates people traveling to other countries, cultures meeting. So I originally thought it was a great thought, but the ad itself, even though it was like nicely done, tastefully done, I didn't think it really lived up to the thought quite as much. But looking at their website, they do have like a special landing page where you can have certain World Cup experiences, like training with old soccer legends, stadium tours, talking to the architect behind Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. They facilitate cultural exchange, these experiences, and that is definitely one of the goals that people have in the World Cup. So I haven't decided whether to put it in B. It definitely adds value to the fan. Or if it's like a very new, I feel like it's not exactly a new thought, the cultural exchange. I've actually personally made ads. I made one or I helped make one for McDonald's in 2018 around that thought. Although it's kind of an underused insight, so I'm tempted to give it A, but I don't think it quite really blows up to that level. So I'm going to give it a nice solid B, which is that it adds something to the experience. If I can find this window, I'm still getting used to the whole streaming thing. All right, I'm going to. Where are you? Here it is. I'm going to put Airbnb here in squarely in the B adds value category. Okay, next. Corando meatballs. I had never heard of this brand. Oh, why aren't the pictures showing up? Let me refresh here. Gotta see the pictures. Great. Corando meatballs. It's called Meat on the Ball. And it's just really just like a little gimmicky, but in a good way, social media giveaway where if one of the commentators says he really put some meat on that ball, they give away meatballs to everybody. So creatively, nothing to write home about. It's not like the greatest campaign of all time by any measure, but I like little things that just give fans a little bit extra to look for as they're watching the game. I think that does add value to the experience, even if it's minimal. It adds to the fun. So to me, that lands them as a solid B. And it's a really simple thing that I don't think this is a small business or anything, because they do have an agency that does work for them, I believe. But A small business could do this too. This is the type of thing where if you have even a modest social media following, you could run little sweepstakes that have to do with the action on the pitch. So good on them. Next, cheap Wrangler for Washingtons. This is funny. This is stunty. This is a contest they're running where if your legal name is George Washington, you are eligible to win a Jeep Wrangler if the US wins the whole thing, wins the World Cup. So again, it adds value. I really do. It's minimal, but again, it gives you like a little something extra to look for. It adds a little something to the story of the World Cup. Now, if the U.S. wins it, people will be on the lookout to see like are these George Washingtons going to get the games, even if it only applies to a small number of people. For them, it raises the stakes a little bit. It adds a little bit of element into the World Cup viewing experience. And it's kind of funny and it's clever and it celebrates the 250th anniversary of the country. Solid B. Lots of just solid B, like just good work, honestly, so far in this World Cup, if I may say so. Duolingo, the Duo Cup kits. Now this is you could argue whether this is advertising or not, or a campaign. It's just something they did inside the app in order to encourage people to maintain their streaks during the World Cup month, which is basically what their entire UX is designed around, is to help people maintain their learning habits, their streaks. It's simple. Every time you do a lesson, you uncover a new skin that's themed after the different country using the colors of the flag. You don't have to have any sort of sponsorship to do this. And then, I use Duolingo a lot. That's how I know about this. And I see everybody using the skins, the little avatars, and switching them up each day. It just adds to the fun. It's as somebody, it's like that small insight of during the World Cup, soccer fans or even people who are just casual fans, their appetite for even just loosely adjacent World Cup content or activities becomes insatiable. So Duo, in a way, for people who weren't practicing or didn't have their habit going, it sort of helped. It offered them something so that it became part of like how they enjoyed the World Cup on a day-to-day basis. So creatively, again, nothing to write home about. It's not really an A, but it adds value and it's clever. B, another B. Oh, okay. United, go visit your friends. That's just the title I gave it. And actually, let me change the order here a little bit because there's a couple. There's one. These should go next to each other. So, okay. United, go visit your new Scottish friends. This is one of a few things I saw that had to do with basically the most fun and most kind of liked off the field story in the World Cup. There's been a couple, but the Scottish fans kind of taking over the country and specifically having a love affair with Boston got a lot of press. Drinking the taps, making the bars run out of beer. So United, just kind of like thinking on their feet, acting nimbly, as they like to say, the marketers like to say. They put up a very simple billboard saying, "Hey, you can go visit your new Scottish friends. We offer flights to Glasgow." So it's almost dumb simple, right? It's not going to be an A thing, but I think it adds to the experience. It has some fun with a side story that people are aware of. You could say it adds value from the point of view that if somebody does become more curious about Scottish culture, about Scotland as a country, which I guarantee you a lot of people have been, and that's part of just the beauty of the World Cup, is that it really does kind of create these academics call them like affinity diasporas of just people who discover a country's culture through the World Cup. And they're putting in their little self-serving grain of sand in helping people think about, hey, you know what? Maybe I should travel to Scotland. As a kind of a side thing, since we're on the subject, when I was building the World Cup marketing course, which by the way, I do have a course, I'll link to it in the comments. I cataloged a lot of like what I call cultural nuggets and things that tend to happen at every World Cup. One that I honestly didn't remember and didn't think of that I'm definitely going to add when I update the modules for next year's women's tournament at least is the fact that there's always some sort of fan base that falls in love with a city that's hosting them, or a team that is has like they set up their home base in a certain city, and that city and that team's fans start kind of really hitting it off. And in this World Cup, the Scottish with Boston has been kind of the main headline around that. But there was also Tijuana, Mexico with the Iranian team, Manhattan, Kansas with the Algerian team, I believe. Um, so all of that to say that even though you don't know exactly which city and which country's fan base it's going to be, there usually is a little bit of this love affair that happens in one way or the other. So any if you work in tourism at all, whether it's like the airlines or whether it's you work on the board of tourism of a certain country or a certain city, you can kind of try to plan ahead to see, hey, like X country is going to be their national team. They're setting up their home base in this city. How can we plan ahead and do something around that to promote travel to the city or to promote travel to that country? It's something that happens at almost every World Cup that I think, especially tourism related brands, travel related brands, diplomacy related organizations should can plan ahead for and have contingency plans to in case that becomes kind of newsworthy, or have plans to sort of encourage it to become a newsworthy thing. Let's move on. There's a second idea related to the Scots, because I told you since when they were in Boston, there were stories about how they had made bars run out of beer. Scotland's second game was down in Miami, and so Miller Lite. I believe this was done by their local field teams, right? So they're like regional offices. Again, they just were keeping their finger on the pulse here, or just like reading the news. They were able to move quickly, and they I don't know if they have access to a barge all the time, but but the but they rented they got a barge out there to Miami to like welcome the Scots with just a bunch of cases of beer, and they called it Restock the Scots. It's a funny sorry, my wife is texting me because I gotta go pick her up soon. So we'll wrap this up soon. But for now, I'm gonna put the phone in the drawer here and ice her out. They wanted to restock. They just like gave him a free case of beer and gave it a gimmicky, fun name, some bagpipes. Hosted the Tartan Army, which is what the Scotland fans are called, and just gave him beer and called it Restock the Scots. That's it, and I think it adds value, at least for them. Enhances their experience. Solid B. What keeps these, by the way, being B and not like A is that the thinking isn't necessarily that new. I mean, it's new in the sense that they're responding to something that's cropping up real time, but it's not. I don't think it's like an enduring new thought that can be repurposed for the whole World Cup or for future World Cups. So that keeps it from feeling like much more epic. And creatively, these haven't been exactly epic, but they're just fun. They add value, and there's merit in that. All right, Levi's the tarp. This has been, I think LinkedIn's favorite campaign. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, it's a perfect like LinkedIn fodder." The backstory to this, in case you didn't know, is that FIFA is very, strict and I guess stingy around its sponsorship, right? So if a stadium has the name of a brand that is not a FIFA sponsor, they're like, you can't call it what the stadium is called. You can't call it that name. You have to cover up your brand name and just call it, in this case, San Francisco Bay Area Stadium. They made Estadio Azteca in Mexico just be called Mexico City Stadium, and I don't know if I didn't know that Azteca was a brand. Maybe it is. Somebody can educate me. I just thought it was what it was called. Anyway, you're not there. Like the broadcasters aren't allowed to call it that during the World Cup. It's a little annoying. So Levi's, not being a sponsor, was asked to cover their name, and they covered it with a tarp shaped like their logo, which is like a little tongue in cheek. LinkedIn went crazy about it. A lot of brands have now been copying that. I think Gillette Stadium in Foxborough covered their tarp in covered the name Gillette in tarp that's kind of shaped like shaving cream, this and that. But Levi started it. Um, I was torn about this. I do think it's clever. I think it's self-serving. I was going to put it in C, in that like it's like in the know, it's cute, but it's like not really doing much for fans or for anybody really outside of LinkedIn. I will say I think that maybe it deserves a higher grade than that. I think it is adding a little bit of value, and I think people maybe even beyond LinkedIn have responded favorably to this, because it does represent a little bit of a middle finger and a fuck you to FIFA, even if it's slight. And I think, especially this World Cup, fans have been very torn because everybody loves the World Cup. They love the teams and the players. But FIFA, they tend to do all these brazen money grabs. So people, almost like if the World Cup had failed, they would have had some schadenfreude, and enjoyed that to some level. And it's a little bit of a, I guess it's a tension. It's like you can't have it both ways. You want the World Cup to go well because you want to enjoy it as a fan, but you don't want FIFA to like get what they want. So this is like a very small way in which someone lightly stuck like a little bit of their finger in FIFA's eye for 1 second. A little bit of catharsis. So if there's any lesson to draw from this, is that brands can look for little subtle ways, especially non-sponsor brands, to troll FIFA. You get a lot of free points for that. So we'll call it adding value because it gave people a little bit of catharsis. Okay, this next one is from an agency, actually. And I wasn't really trying to include ideas from ad agencies themselves, but I gotta admit, this one's really good. Just full disclosure, I don't have any affiliation with Lerma Agency aside from somebody who works there now in a leadership position. I worked with them briefly on a contract assignment, and he's a really cool guy. But really, I have no other reason to promote Lerma. I just think this is a really fun idea from a business to business. And again, and it's like an example of something that you don't need to have that much money to do. Like any sort of small service-oriented business could do something similar to this. Basically, if you are caught at work and can't watch the World Cup, and I guess you're too cowardly to put it on your computer stream, put the actual game, you don't want somebody looking over your shoulder. Lerma is giving you the chance to book a call with them the way you would book like an exploratory call when you're going to hire like a new vendor. But instead of talking any of that or them doing any presentation, they're actually putting their chief growth officer on the call, AI version of him, and he will be narrating the games as they happen. So part of points against this is that it's such like it's actually not like the greatest experience through which to consume a game, and it's a very specific situation that I don't know if it applies to anybody. But maybe you work at an office and your boss is no fun and is not letting you watch the World Cup, and they're looking over your shoulder all the time. This makes it look like you're on a call with somebody serious, but they're actually just telling you what's happening in the game. It's like listening to a radio broadcast. I don't even know if it works, but it's a clever, funny idea, and so I had to. I'm almost tempted to give it an A, honestly, because I've been giving an A to the new thought of like treating the World Cup like like a vacation, and that urge, like I hadn't seen that really being talked to until now, and this year everybody's talking to it. So I gave credit to other brands for doing that, and this is a really clever way to execute on it, and using something that is in theory accessible to everybody. You know what? I'm going to give an ad agency an A for a new relevant insight with competent craft. Congratulations, Lerma. Molson Coors as a company. So a lot of brands involved with this. The Beer Fling. This is just kind of, I think, a very simple, clever little campaign where it's aimed at people who are visiting the country, who probably have a favorite beer at home that they maybe aren't able to get here, and they're saying, "Hey, you know what? It's okay to cheat on your favorite beer. Try these American beers." Um, it's I just think it's just very simple. It's just very cute. Um, it's again, it's not the greatest creative idea or anything, but it's fun, and I think it does add a little bit of limited value on two fronts. One is like to the extent that foreigners want to drink Miller Lite or Coors Light, uh, puts that in their head if they want to explore those beers. Not that those beers are available in a lot of the world, so it might be a moot point. But the other thing is that this year had America as a host, and there was a lot of questions about like, is America really in a time when it's a very good host to foreigners? So I just think like even in an insignificant small way, I like that this kind of shows an American company being hospitable to foreigners. I like it. I think it's a solid B. Solid B. And better say than I think last time we talked about the InBevs, AB InBevs, or whatever they're called these days. Their whole kind of like company wide campaign around bars and the manifesto to bars, which I thought was wallpaper. And I think this is like a much honestly simpler, less self important, and fun way to add value and do something for yourselves. All right, Turo. Italy didn't make the tournament, but I guess Italian cars did. Here's a barge across Puget Sound in Seattle with a bunch of Italian cars. I was trying not to be too mean this time around, but I'm sorry. This is like really expensive wallpaper. I put it in here too because I noticed a lot of brands are trying to do like their insight, quote unquote, is like Italy's not in it, but we can kind of do something to make up for that. And I feel like that kind of fails on a few different levels. Number one, this is the third tournament in a row Italy's not in it. If anybody cared outside of Italy, by now they're like kind of used to it. And it's different, say, from when like the US flamed out in 2018 and maybe the world, you're for a US audience, you're trying to like make up for that. But it's like, okay, I'm sure there's fans of Italy in the country, but I don't know if it's like that widespread. It's just that there's a few brands that have Italian heritage and they're trying to just like shoehorn this whole thing about making up for Italy not being in it as if it was like this big thought, and it's not. And even though, going back to Carando here, they actually started their video also with Italy's didn't make it this year, which I was like, I just don't think you even needed that. So it's just like this shoehorning. So I don't know. Somebody had to take the fall for it in this video and get ridiculed for it, and it's going to be Turo. All right, this is the end of the new entrants, and then there's just a couple campaigns I talked about in the past. Don Julio is one. Campaigns that now I've seen like a new spot or have added to it. So they had the spot with Roberto Carlos and Thierry Henry doing the moves in the party. They have an ad now more directly meant to promote this kind of special edition bottle that kind of looks like the World Cup trophy, I guess. And they have a nice little fun, tasteful spot with Thierry Henry raising the bottle, intercut with a country's historically raising the World Cup at different World Cups. It's fine. I don't think it really changes their standing. It's still a kind of an in-the-know brand, in-the-know campaign that shows soccer knowledge, but it kind of doesn't really do anything, I think, beyond that. So still a C. And then DoorDash had like an out-of-door activation to go with their Deliver Us to Football campaign. I feel like it only really fits because they put the name in it, but it's the DoorDash logo, but then the two O's look like a 0-0 next to each other, and then they change them to tell you the score of the game as it's happening. I think it's clever. I think it's cute. This activation by itself, I think, would have been a C, like an in the know or cute, but not necessarily that exciting. But DoorDash still stays. I gave him an A last time for the actual TV commercial, video commercial, and I think they stay in the A. Good craft, and this just adds a little fun wrinkle to it, but doesn't change things necessarily dramatically. Okay, let me check to make sure my wife is good. She's still good. All right, Let's to finish, let me do some corrections and go over some mea culpas or whatever for like what things that I changed my mind about from last time. I'll just go down the list here. I'll browse um so I can remember. Most of the in the article I ended up not listing the wallpapers because I didn't want to be like too mean, too negative. Um so Coors Light, I think I gave it a C. Oh, unambitious, cliche, but clever enough that it might work. The thing is, like they what did they do? They added a billboard where you add O's for every goal that gets scored in the World Cup, and they also did something. The taller boy. I think that wasn't part of it the last time we talked, where they have like a special edition kind of party gimmick. The taller boy. Uh, it's like a I call it like almost like a party piece where it's just like a really tall boy of beer. So now I'm like, you know what? I think it this lands him in the B because even though it's like a gimmicky little party piece, it is like a fun party piece. I think it adds to the experience. Even though again, I hate the original Inside, it's cliche, but they did fun things with it. So Coors Light gets an upgrade. Um Trying to think of anything else. Um Okay, this one, everything can happen. Honestly, what did I gave it like ambitious but couldn't land it, or did I give it? I might have even given it. I didn't give it wallpaper, did I? I think it was just like a C in the know, but didn't quite land. No, I gave it a B. Just added something of value. Okay, so I actually rated it higher in the stream than I remember originally. Honestly, when I was watching it again to read the article, it's crafted really well compared to a lot of the other spots. It does show some like in the know. I think it's unfair to like list it in the same tier as the Coors Light one. No offense, but I think it's like slightly a level up. Level up. I think I was being a hater, so I'm gonna put it in old insight with an excellent new twist, or just done with good craft. So upgraded. Everything can happen. Lay's bandwagon. I think I did I put it in ads value? No, I put it in A, relevant combo. When I looked at that one again, it's like the opposite. I was like, this isn't that great. I think the ambition I was in love with the new thought, the new insight, but they really didn't do that much with it. So I actually in the article ended up putting it in ambitious but couldn't land it. So we're kicking it down a notch. This stayed the same. A thought on backyard legends is that they've made a Spanish version for the Spanish channels, and usually they just when they make a version for the Spanish channel, they just kind of hope people get it in English, or they kind of just like kind of cut it in a way that's inconfoundable. They actually Bad Bunny made like a cameo along with Messi in the original short. They actually filmed more with them to make an expanded kind of like remixed version where you're getting the same story, but instead of Timothée Chalamet telling it to you, it's them telling it to you. It's not as good as the original, but I still appreciate that they had the forethought to version the story for different audiences, different languages, and do it in a way that didn't feel like an afterthought. Good for them. Um, let's see. Oh, this one. I think the Cerveza Águila from Colombia, I think I was being too biased giving it a B. Like it does add value for me. But I think it's more of like a C. It's like in the know, but not that exciting in general from the point of view of craft. So downgraded that one. Trying to see what else. The Superior Match, I was like, this is wallpaper, this is useless. I still don't like the ad, but this was another one that I thought the craft, it was too well made. It's not going to be totally unmemorable. I think people do enjoy it, so I upgraded it to C in the know. Kind of cute, but not that exciting, not that innovative. Axe still love, all of these still love. There was maybe one other one that what did I do for Topo Chico? Oh, Topo Chico, once I thought about it a little bit more, like they are giving people money. I don't think it's actually that ambitious. As I said, it was ambitious but couldn't land it. I think it's actually just kind of adds value in its own way. It does add value to fans. It makes the experience better, and I don't think it's actually that ambitious. So in a weird way, I overrated their ambition, but now it moves them up a tier. Rip the Script does have a version for this, not just for Spanish TV, but for TV in general, and I find that to be like a very haphazard cut. It's supposed to just be a teaser for this actual, for you to go then see this longer commercial slash short online. I don't really know if it does that. Just an interesting contrast with Adidas, the way they both handled shortening it for TV. And then I think there was one last one that all of these were wallpapered. Valvoline, The Journey. I said it was ambitious because it had like kind of an interesting road trip insight. But when I saw it again, I was thinking about it for the article. It was just kind of, they added it. I don't even think they showed that much ambition. I think Valvoline, sadly, is just straight up wallpaper, demoted. And I think that does it. Let's do maybe as some kind of parting thoughts, just some other things I've been seeing that maybe don't have to do only with ads, or just general thoughts. We talked about the whole city and team kind of like love affair phenomenon. Something to think about for future tournaments. The other thing, and this is like a very small kind of like, I guess, pet peeve, but I've noticed that in the Spanish channels, a lot of times they dub, like if they have English celebrities, like Christian Pulisic is like in every ad, they dub his voice in Spanish. They use like an actor to dub his dialogue into Spanish. I don't know. I find that very grating. Maybe just personally, I think it just takes me out of it. I would rather just have him speak in English and have it be subtitled. People in those channels, especially in soccer, like people are used to subtitles in ads now. It's fine. You can do it. It doesn't feel quite as like, I don't know. It just feels very amateur to dub the English speakers. Or if you were doing it the other way, I still think it would feel amateur. And I think there's other ads that are otherwise unremarkable where if the English speaking celebrity or character speaks any Spanish, they just speak Spanish in an accent. And that's totally fine too and natural. Just please, anybody's watching who's adapting ads into Spanish, don't dub it. It sounds stupid. All right, thanks everybody. We will check in one more time after the tournament's over, just to see if anybody did anything special during the knockout rounds or the final.